Want to be a part of the conversation? Then let us know on the TNT Radio Interactive Live Chat Room at tntradio.live. Lighting the fuse for freedom. Today's News Talk, TNT Radio. You're listening to George Eliason, live from Donbass, Ukraine, on today's News Talk Radio, TNT.
Welcome back. And I forgot we weren't during the week. Now, we're very lucky to have Dr. Olga Ravassi today. Olga's here. Dr. Ravassi is an expert in Balkan affairs, South Central Europe, the Middle East, and she carries the designation of a highly qualified expert. And that's from the DNI. That's from the Director of National Intelligence. She's the chairperson of the Serbian-American Voters Alliance, SAVA, and she has her own show on YouTube. It's State of Affairs with Dr. Olga Ravassi. Dr. Ravassi, thanks for coming on today.
Thank you, George. Great to hear you again. How's everything?
Oh, everything's going fine. I really apologize for giving you the wrong time.
No worries. It's been chaotic couple of weeks, and we're still midst chaos. And now I'm battling bronchitis from all the stress, but I guess we'll survive. We'll see what happens next week.
All right. Well, I hope you feel better on that count. Now, can you tell the listeners what the Serbian-American Voters Alliance actually is and what your goals are?
Well, so from 2016 and then particularly in 2020, we mobilized the American Serbs into a very powerful voting bloc because these are the communities that have been historically disenfranchised from the political process in the United States. Although the American Serb community, for example, has been in America since the 1800s and has contributed greatly to the fabric of this nation. However, since the 1990s, since NATO bombing of Serbia, there's been so much demonization of that segment of the population that the American Serbs just sort of shut down, got quiet, and, went into sort of their own world without making any kind of impacts in terms of what affects their lives. So given my background and my strong connections at the time, particularly to President Trump's administration, I thought that it was a great momentum to mobilize not only the American Serbs, but other communities that haven't really participated in the political process. So as you mentioned, we launched Serbian Americans for Trump. We swung some votes from Hillary to President Trump in very key swing states like Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and Michigan, and elsewhere. And right after 2020, we all remember that fiasco. And unfortunately, obviously, nothing has changed since 2020. We launched a PAC, which is the Serbian American Voters Alliance. We have an incredible expert board of advisors. So we wanted to create sort of a political bloc that will continuously participate in the political process. And we have galvanized that grassroots movement into this election. So we have not only been present in Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and Michigan, we are in Florida, we are in Georgia, we are in Nevada, we're in Arizona. We are in all the key states that we are currently watching. And I have to tell you, I'm consistently on the edge of my seat because we have endorsed some amazing candidates for Senate and for Congress. Serbs for Trump as a surrogate has actually endorsed gubernatorial candidates. So, of course, we backed Governor DeSantis and several others. But now we are watching what is unraveling in Arizona and Nevada. We are backing Adam Laxalt. We backed Blake Masters. And it is just incredible, George, that Florida, for example, where I am, counted their votes in the same day, 10:30. We knew exactly where we stood. It was a huge red tsunami, I have to say, which is kind of natural because we had a lot of people move to Florida. So Florida certainly became much redder than it was before, even turning Miami-Dade County. But this is not election week. This is not election month. We are now being conditioned to accept that votes cannot be counted in one day. Well, Florida did that. We have a perfect election, 10:30. Governor DeSantis gave an amazing speech. We were live over here in Naples with General Flynn, giving live podcast results. And it's incredible that we are a third world country. It's a banana republic, that we cannot count these votes. And Florida actually has 3 times more population numbers than Arizona and Nevada. And, unfortunately, we couldn't make up the difference in Pennsylvania. We did make up the difference in Wisconsin with Senator Ron Johnson. So we swung even more votes in his direction in Waukesha and Kenosha counties, which I have about 22,000 American Serbs in those 2 counties, and they became even more red than last time around. If you remember, President Trump in 2020 lost at about 20,000 votes. So we moved those votes over to Senator Johnson. However, Milwaukee County is still very blue, and we just don't have the manpower to change that. However, we did win in Wisconsin. Senator Johnson will be back for another term. We had a rally with him and Ambassador Rick Grenell a couple of weeks ago. So, we're very much active, and this is not only about American Serbs. As I said, it's about the communities that have been disenfranchised from the political process all around the country. But unfortunately, I think everybody is losing faith in the electoral process because they make up the difference in the votes as they go. And then in key moments when people are leading, all of a sudden everything shuts down. You heard the reports. We were running out of ink. The machines stopped. There were no papers there was no paper in New Jersey. It's insanity. This is unacceptable in the United States of America.
The fact that the Secretary of State could run the election while she was trying to get elected in Arizona, it makes me. If she wins, I just go to court, conflict of interest. This person can't do this and that at the same time, and win the election that way. Now, she is actually slowing down the election in Arizona. Is that true? That's what I've been hearing.
I was talking to a couple of people last night from my team who are directly on the ground in Arizona. And, obviously she is the Secretary of State. And at this point, I think we're just also on the edge, and we're kind of going like, this is crazy. She's in charge of the counts, but essentially it is the county supervisors who handled the election day. However, the county supervisors have people who pull their strings from up above. So I think, we can make those connections and understand how it works and how they're setting up certain counties. You look at Maricopa, and it is insane what we're witnessing and how things are going. Unfortunately, they declared Blake Masters to lose this fight last night, although there are still votes coming in. So now we're looking, for Attorney General Abe Hamade. We endorsed him. We're looking at Kerry Lake, and then Mark Fincham is going to be a key piece on this chessboard if they can, of course, win and consolidate to actually break apart this monopoly in Maricopa County and figure out what happened. And again, George, I think we all are not shocked that this is happening because we know that nothing changed since 2020, right? None of these states changed anything. But at the same time, I think people rallied and they thought that they could overwhelm the machines. And there was a really great voter turnout. And here's the numbers that are not making sense. So we're at about 51% of Republican voter turnout. We have about 6 million more votes than the Democrats overall. And it's still somehow not enough. However, the red states have become more red, obviously, because of the migration, and the blue states have become more blue because people are simply escaping those states. But at the same time, we are now a completely paralyzed and polarized nation. And, it's I know you know what this means, but it's maybe balkanization time.
Well, there's right now they're talking about, the red wave turned into a puddle and we need to get past Donald Trump. Now, a lot of this, and I've been discussing it, is because he's the one guy that they're actually afraid of.
Yes.
What do you think of these Republicans that are going on MSNBC, that are going on CBS, that are going on CNN and saying, yes, we need to get candidates and office holders that'll work with the Democrats and normalize things.
Yes, and unfortunately, and I'm hearing both sides, let's just break down some of the numbers. When you look at President Trump's record in terms of the candidates that he, let's say, handpicked or supported in this election cycle, we're at about over 90%. I believe, currently we're at about 219 candidates so far that have won, I think 16 lost. So, I mean, these are big numbers. When you compare to the Beltway GOP that has funded and underfunded great America First candidates for lukewarm candidates who would actually support their roles as majority minority leader or speaker. And I was told this at the very beginning when we launched some of these campaigns last year from candidates that were going out, talking to the GOP, seeking out their endorsement, seeking out financial support. They wouldn't talk to them. And the ones that they did talk to, the condition was, you're going to support me for, so-and-so position. So right now, I'm glad to hear that the Republican Congressional Caucus and even Senator Marco Rubio, who had a great win here in Florida, and Josh Hawley are kind of, and Matt Gaetz, and they're launching an attack on the Beltway GOP that actually undermined America First candidates. They didn't support Blake Masters at all. They left him to hang. Didn't support Adam Laxalt over in Nevada. Didn't do anything in Alaska, which nobody's paying attention to Alaska right now, but Alaska is still counting votes. And instead of pushing Tishibaka, who is currently leading, they gave a lot of money to Lisa Murkowski, who is, again, as swampy as it comes.
Right.
And now they're battling it out up in Alaska, and we still don't know the outcome of that. It's going to be interesting to see what's happening in Georgia, because now we all have to rally around Herschel Walker. And if the Beltway is actually going to be able to pull this off, and if they're going to put the resources to back Herschel Walker, because, so far we've seen what they've done in 2020, same, Georgia, and we lost that one. Mm-hmm. So I would say there's plenty of blame to go around. But yes, they are afraid of President Trump. They don't want him to come back. But let's look at their record. The candidates that they backed, the Beltway, they all lost. And when you look at the January 6th commission, people had sat on that commission lost. So, I mean, what is kind of disenfranchising a little bit, but I kind of want to say, there's more than meets the eye, is Governor DeSantis has been an amazing governor. And we are doing so well here in Florida. And this veiled and not even veiled, it's a little bit of a blunt call out by President Trump towards Governor DeSantis. I think there's much more that meets the eye, and we can't assume to always know everything. I hope that the Beltway doesn't get under Governor DeSantis' skin, and I hope he doesn't take the bait, and I know he's much smarter than that. But I think President Trump is launching an attack not directly on Governor DeSantis. He's actually launching an attack on the Beltway, who is kind of sniveling around and trying to use Governor DeSantis as a tool So, I mean, I don't want to go too much into this, but as I said, I think there's more there than meets the eye, and it's a sideshow. And I'm hoping and I'm thinking that there is Governor DeSantis and President Trump are winking at one another and working together. That's just my gut feeling. Of course, I can't confirm it either way. But of course, they're afraid of him. I don't know what is going to happen now on Tuesday, on November 15th. President said he was going to have a big announcement. I think he should announce as soon as possible and unify the party. And all of these really strong Republicans that actually agree on everything, including Governor DeSantis, should rally all together. Governor DeSantis is young. He has an incredible political future. And I think his time is just coming.
We've got to take a quick break. I want to start right here when we get back, okay?
Sure.
The United Nations Climate Summit is here once again, this time in Egypt. Will the United Nations save the planet?
From Washington, D.C., this is the Morano Minute with your host, TNT Radio's Mark Morano.
The annual UN Climate Summit, known as COP27, is taking place in Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt. This summit will likely be known as the Cover Your Rear End Summit, as the whole world realizes the failure of the United Nations climate agenda. The whole world can see the failure from Europe to the United States to Canada to Australia with the United Nations climate agenda. Skyrocketing energy prices, shortages of energy, blackouts, food shortages, a war on meat eating, a banning of gas-powered cars, the UN claiming they own the science. Let's hope the only thing produced at this climate summit is more CO2 emissions from the private jets of the climate activists attending. This is Mark Morano for the Morano Minute on TNT Radio.
Challenging the consensus and debunking the narrative. This is Viewpoint.
Exponentially increasing battery production is said to be necessary for a green transition, but this will damage economies for no genuine environmental gain. The mining and processing of metals necessary for batteries causes significant environmental damage. Acids used for water leaching in processing lithium poisons rivers. Pollution from cobalt mining is linked to birth defects. Global lithium production has more than doubled since 2016. The September 2019 World Economic Forum report forecasted a 14-fold growth in global battery demand by 2030. The ugly truth is that exponentially increasing battery production has expanded a new form of slavery. For instance, most cobalt used in batteries is sourced from the Democratic Republic of the Congo, where many mines use child labor. Mega batteries planned to store electricity from wind turbines and solar panels will make electricity unaffordable.
The news everyone is talking about. TNT Radio, where the longer you listen, the more reasons you find to keep listening. Lighting the fuse for freedom. TNT Radio.
Welcome back. We're getting a lesson in politics with Dr. Olga Ravassi, chairperson of the Serbian-American Voters Alliance, SAVA. Now, Dr. Ravassi, where we left off was whether or not Trump will declare next week. Mm-hmm. Now, here's a question, because this is something else that the Democratic Party media, I wouldn't, how else are you going to describe CNN or MSNBC that are asking rhinos, should they go by Trump?
Yep.
They're asking him this very question. Should he wait to declare his candidacy until after the Georgia runoff?
And now, that's a good point. Yes. Well,
okay. Why would you think that, or why not?
Strategically, and there are two sides to this. If he declares now, he will take the attention off of Georgia to himself. And I think that was the fear, him declaring even before the primary, because if you remember, there were many talks about him declaring before the primaries, even when he went to Ohio to rally for J.D. Vance, who also took a great victory in Ohio for the Senate. there was speculation that President Trump would declare. And I think nobody anticipated this Georgia runoff, although we know that it happens very often. So if he does declare, he is going to pull the resources and attention to himself away from Georgia, away from Herschel. And I don't think that works for us at this time.
Right.
But at the same time, if he doesn't declare, I don't know what the swamp, and obviously we have to look at the swamp as both the Democrat machinery with the media, with the big tech, and then the GOP Beltway rhinos, who obviously are looking to work with the Democrats for the sake of their own positions and their own power, but not for the sake of the American people. And I'm hearing lot of whispers. Yes, and I'm hearing a lot of whispers in the America First circles where they just don't want to work. You asked me if they should negotiate with the Democrats. No, I think this is where they are at the America First people don't want to negotiate anymore. They don't want to play nice. And I think that's where the GOP is losing that support, although we must say that President Trump did endorse Ronna McDaniel and McCarthy and McConnell. So, I mean, as much as we can look at the swamp being, let's say now, for all intents and purposes, allegedly around Governor DeSantis, where there was a lot of swamp around President Trump, too, where he just couldn't fight them, and they were all around his cabinet, and he couldn't trust anybody at some point, and I don't think he can trust anybody at this point, because he has gotten stabbed in the back by so many of these people, and the Bush type of people were around him as well. So I don't think anybody can even wrap their mind around how deep and how wide the swamp is. And it's not just in DC, it's everywhere. It's in every single county. It's in every single state. And I have to say it's in every country, because you and I talked about this, when you look at elections around the world, the world was looking at America, and the world was looking at these midterms with so much hope and expectations, because I think, especially the Europeans, they're falling apart. And they thought that the only fighting spirit, that spirit of liberty, was left in the United States, and that somehow if we prevail here, there's hope. But, if they can consistently do this in Pennsylvania, Nevada, and Arizona, I'll tell you right now, there's no way that we can win another presidency. It's just not going to happen. Mathematically, it's impossible. And I don't know what gives and how this is going to change. But I know that there was a lot of hope in Europe and around the world that something monumental would take place here. And, again, this discussion, whether it was a huge tsunami or a little trickle, well, we looked at the numbers, and I think, over 90% candidates winning, America First candidates.
That's pretty
versus
huge.
These lukewarm. That's pretty big, and I think that tells us
huge.
Who still has the monopoly in this movement and in the party. And I think at this time, people just must rally. Is it going to be a good idea to declare before Georgia? That's a toss-up. I think all eyes have to be on Georgia. I think all resources need to focus on Herschel Walker, and President Trump and Governor DeSantis would be both very smart to appear in Georgia together.
I think
that would show unity.
The reason, that they want, and this is the Democrats that are actually putting this stuff out, and that's the thing to keep in mind. He should wait until after the Georgia runoffs. Well, what possible reason?
Because it doesn't work for them to. This is, as they say, now they're seeing this alleged feud unraveling, not just with Governor DeSantis, but Governor Youngkin. And, they're just sitting in the back and, having a cigar and whiskey and smiling and saying, look at them, we love that they're eating at each other. And it's unfortunate, but I'm just, as I said, I'm hoping that there's a bigger place somewhere, and we're not just so gullible.
Oh, exactly. And I think another reason might just be that as long as he remains undeclared, they can say that, he's tentative,
Yes.
that he's trying to figure it out, that he's not sure. And
Yes.
I think they're trying to set up a damned if you do, damned if you don't moment.
Mm-hmm. But you bring up a great point. I think then him declaring really shows determination and fearlessness to go for the horns of the swamp again. Because you're right. If he doesn't, they will see it and they will perceive it as weakness. So, yes, possibly it would be a great idea to declare rally behind Walker. Again, I keep opening every single portal and looking at these votes trickling in Nevada and Arizona, and it's just so heartbreaking because they make them up as they go. For example, in Nevada, we made a dip that's a pretty big red dip up around Reno. That's a Washoe County, even more so than the last time around. But then Clark County is set up so that they can literally, as they go, make up the difference of whatever red votes come in. So it's insane, but you can never win. Yeah.
Now, are you saying that what they're doing is looking and adjusting the votes, or is this?
That's what I'm understanding from my teams on the ground. That's the way they've been set up. And again, when you look at back, we had the conversation about Dominion machines and where those were in 2020 and how all of this ties together. Nothing changed. Mail-in ballots. I mean, this is going to be the demise of the American Democratic Republic. Mail-in ballots will tear this country apart. That's it.
I agree with that. And I mean, you look at Pennsylvania, Fetterman actually sued to have unfinished ballots, mail-in ballots counted.
And
now, did that go through?
No. And it was funny. We were thinking, well, Fetterman will go out and explain to us the merits of the lawsuit in fluent Bidenese. Can somebody really tell me that they look at a guy like Fetterman, and with all due respect, I understand he has a medical condition, but even before the medical condition, you are really telling me that people are going out in droves and voting for something like this? I mean, I don't understand what kind of state of degeneracy have we reached in the world where all of a sudden there's no criteria whatsoever for the political office or for any kind of public office. Or I don't know if you followed, and this is not at all my arena. I don't understand anything about cryptocurrency, but this whole collapse of Alameda and have you seen the people who are running this? Have you seen the people who were given tens of billions of dollars to run with? I mean, so back to, these are the people that maybe vote for Fetterman. Where are they pulling these people out? I'm old school. So, I mean, I'm about a certain persona and aesthetics and presentation, in public. And you look at these people, and it is really, we are as a society reaching levels of degeneracy that is running.
They actually had to buy Fetterman his first tie. They bought Fetterman his first tie for the debate. That's amazing.
Isn't that incredible? Mm-hmm. But all of it is now, everything is acceptable. Everything is in. Everything is cool. So let's tear down every societal norm that has preserved this civilization for hundreds of years So now we can be in charge, because that's the only situation when you tear down the acceptable norms. That's the only situation when these people can be in charge. And here they are. You look at them and you wonder. I'm baffled. I'm shocked. And so that tells me either as a society, we have completely collapsed and there's no criteria, or they're just stealing it, period, and nobody's voting for these people, but here we are. I can't, there's no third option. I cannot explain it to myself.
There actually is a third option. I'm investigating it now, believe it or not.
Okay.
There is a third option. And you've got a bunch of high-level academics that are behind all of this, feeding the actual talking points into the machine. Yeah, yep. The whole Donald Trump is a Nazi thing, right?
Yes.
That actually came from Dr. Timothy Snyder. He's the original source on that. But forget about the name calling part.
Yep.
He provided them with the academic clout where they could take that Donald Trump is a Nazi, and he's saying, I'm very serious about this, so we need to save the Republic. What will you do to save the Republic? You know how he talks, right?
Yes,
the Republic,
yes.
Guys, what will you do to... I'm an extremist, and with the things I love, and I love democracy, I'll do anything to save democracy. If you love democracy, you have to do anything too. Constitution equals Skittles. And he's saying things like this.
And unicorns.
And yeah, and he's right behind them. So he's lining them up. So they got, wow, we got the really smartest guys in the country behind us, and they're telling us we have to do this, or Adolf Hitler's coming out of the grave in Donald Trump's pants.
And that's a great point. And, I've spent some time in academia, and, I'm a social scientist. I have my PhD. Mm-hmm. I observe, and the observations that I've just made about, aesthetics and these people that are crawling out of the woodwork. But you do make a great point with academia, but let's remember how that academia also falls into this category that I'm describing. I mean, these are,
exactly,
I hate to say it, but your dorks with the thick glasses from the front row who have never really accomplished much, but then ended up working their way into the ivory towers, and they made it their life journey to create hell for the cool kids, who they always were jealous of. And this is what we have going on. They were never cool. They were never accepted. So it's the same plethora of the people that are just hiding behind that veil of, oh, we're the smartest people in the country. No, actually, you're not. You're socially awkward, and you're as backwards as they come with some sort of, these days we call it exceptionality, but with a quirk in their brain, and somehow that's become the pinnacle of smartness. No street smarts, no coolness, no nothing, just your, thick glasses wearing geeks from the front row who just couldn't really tie their shoes. And that's who's running things. And that's who's, you're right, feeding the talking points and giving the appearance of the smart people are doing it. No, they're not. And I've seen these people, and I never want to be around them ever again in high academia.
Okay, now we have to plug you a little bit. Where can our listeners find you right now?
So, as you said, please have everyone tune into our YouTube channel, State of Affairs with Dr. Ravasi. My only social network is Facebook. I'm still kind of old school. I'm on Facebook, but of course, Serbian-American Voters Alliance.
It is so worth tuning into, folks.
Thank you
so much for coming by today.
Thank you so much for having me. We'll talk soon.
Okay. Bye-bye now.
Bye.
This is George Eliason with TNT Talk Radio. Have a great weekend.